And greetings, saints of the Most High. Welcome to a special installment of the Messianic Torah Observer. Rod Thomas coming to you from Migori, Kenya. It's been a month since I was last recording and posting to you, and I had informed you in that last post that it would be a while before I could actually get back with you and post another installment. Well, this is not a teaching installment. It's more of an update on what has been transpiring with Hillary and I here in Kenya on our missionary journey here to address the needs of the widows and orphans here in Kenya. As I said, we are here on this Shabbat, as I'm recording this, the 27th of September. I hope you had a wonderful and blessed Yom Teruah. In our absence, I am so sorry that we weren't there, but we were here and we were working the fields. We were, so to speak, we were actually taking care of business here for the kingdom here in Kenya. So just to give you some reference of where Migori is in relation to, let's say, Nairobi, which is the capital. Migori is located southwest of it's located, let's just say, in southwestern Kenya, and it's near the border of Tanzania. And in relation to Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, it's about 380 kilometers from Nairobi, which comes out to somewhere about 240 miles from Nairobi. It's about an 8 to 10 hour travel by ground transportation, and most people take what they call a matatu or a bus to travel between the capital, Nairobi, to Migori if they live or work in Migori. We were blessed to be able to take what we call a puddle jumper from Nairobi to Migori, and that's about a 45-50 minute trip. So it was a very convenient way to get here. Unfortunately, they only fly from Nairobi to Migori on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So when we arrived in Nairobi on August the 25th, which was a Monday, we had some things to do, which I'm going to give you an update on what happened when we arrived here and what we've been up to, and then give you an overview of what we're going to be doing in the remaining month that we're here. As I said, we arrived here in Kenya, in Nairobi, on the 25th, Monday the 25th, and we're looking at leaving, going back to the DFW area on the 19th of October. So we will have stayed here in Kenya for about 2 full months. So it's been quite a journey, and I have a lot to talk to you about. So let me just give you an update on what we've been up to. I don't want to take a lot of your time because we got to get back to work, even though it's Sabbath. Hillary is out visiting some widows today. Looking at how our the ministry is Qumran Family Foundation, by the way, and you may have heard me talk about that ministry and asking for your support. We're going to really ramp up the support because the needs of the widows and of the orphans here in southwest Kenya is pretty great. Not so much in places like Nairobi or maybe in any of the other more developed cities and thoroughfares throughout Kenya, but in many of the rural areas, it's pretty impoverished, and they need our help. Also, we have a lot of ministries in these areas who are doing their best to try to help the widows and even the orphans, but their means of support for these disenfranchised, disadvantaged groups is very limited. But I'll get into that in just a minute. So let me just say that when we arrived here on the 25th, we spent 5 days in Nairobi, and most of those 5 days was spent in getting Qumran Family Foundation, the Hillary's Foundation, which is a 501c3 organization that serves the purpose of assisting in coming to the aid of the fatherless and the husbandless, the widows of Kenya. You see, when you're a widow in many of these areas of Kenya, you're not allowed to remarry. And in many cases, when the husband dies, before the husband even dies, the couple and the family are already impoverished. But when the husband does die, the widow is not allowed to remarry. And thus the widow is impoverished and in a very difficult way. They can't make much of a living, and it's a very, very sad situation. Hopefully when we get back, we can produce a video and a podcast installment that will give you more of an in-depth understanding of what the situation here on the ground is. But the situation's pretty bad in many of these areas, and it's not getting any better, even though it may appear that it's better in many of, like I said, the more developed areas of the country. It still remains really, really, I don't even know how to describe it. It hasn't changed in a century in many ways. They have some modern conveniences such as cell phones. Everybody has a cell phone, which amazes me here, even the more impoverished people. But there's a lot of begging for money. There's a lot of scams going on, so we have to be on our toes every day, our eyes forward and behind us and to the sides, because there's always scams going on, always thievery going on and things of that nature. But it's a very difficult situation, but that does not dissuade us from doing the work that Father has given us to do here. So when we arrived, we did our final registration of, and I'm reading, normally I have my notes very well put together, but this is an impromptu update on what's happening with us. So I'm going by some scribbled notes that I have, so please forgive me that it's not as polished as it normally is on the Messianic Torah Observer teachings. This is, again, an update on what we're doing. But we spent Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday working with the Kenyan government to get Qumran Family Foundation legalized here to operate in Kenya. And Yah was extremely faithful and gracious, and we were able to accomplish that. Hillary was able to get all of the documentation completed and filed, and she got all of the certificates and documents she needed to function legally here in Kenya. So that was, as soon as we landed, we got a little bit of sleep because it's a 24-hour, basically a 24-hour jaunt, trek here from DFW Airport to Nairobi International Airport. After we woke up, we got going on getting the work done that we needed to get done down in central Nairobi. And then after that, as I said, on that Friday, we caught a puddle jumper, a prop aircraft, and flew here to Migori, where this would serve as our home base. We're at the Calabash Hotel. The Calabash Hotel, it seems like it's a 50s or 60-year-old structure or building. And we signed in here, we registered here before we came, and we came in, and we have made this our home base for the 2 months that we're here in Kenya, especially here in Migori, looking to operate in Kehancha, Kisii, possibly up in Homa Bay. But the Calabash here in Migori has been our home base and will be until the day we leave here and go back to Nairobi and board our flight back to DFW. But we did have a chance twice to meet with the widows in Kehancha school, the school that QFF is operating to educate and empower the widows in the city of Kehancha. Kehancha is about 40 to 50-minute drive from here in Migori. So we've been blessed by this hotel and the staff here at the Calabash Hotel. They have provided for our every need. Granted, I mean, it wasn't a giver, and we had to pay for many of the things that we needed, but they provided us, of course, a very safe and secure place to operate out of. Our rooms are very nice. In Kenya standards, they're good, they're clean, and we're well fed and we're well looked after. Security here is excellent. They provide us with a driver. They provide us whatever facilities and materials and things that we need to get the work done as we operate remotely, and then we plan out what we're going to do on that particular day that we're going to work, let's say in Kehancha or in Kisii, and they will arrange a driver for us to take us there. And it's wonderful because we don't speak Swahili. And we don't know this country, so we need someone who is familiar with the surroundings, with the location and all of that good stuff. So we were blessed to have the staff here at the Calabash. A shout out to Mark Ogaga, who is the general manager for the Calabash, who heard what we were doing prior to us coming, and he graciously got a hold of his higher ups in Nairobi who own this hotel, and they all said, hey, we're going to become partners with Qumran Family Foundation. We will provide them a home to work out of and all that they need in order to function while here in Kenya. And this was a blessing more than I can ever express in words, because we came here not knowing what to expect, not knowing how we're going to get from point A to point B to point C and back to point A again. All we knew is that we had a decent hotel that we were going to work out of, and we would just try to see how we could get to where we needed to get to. The other reason we selected the Calabash is because it had conferencing facilities. Several venues here that we could use, because the first class, the first graduating class of Qumran Family Foundation Empowerment of Widows was graduating on the 22nd of September. And I'll give you a little bit of quick update on that in just a minute. But that was the other thing. We needed a place that could entertain, let's just say, or provide for a graduation ceremony of 41 graduating widows. The class started out with almost 100 widows, but half of the class, roughly 60 or so, need a little more time in class to get up to the level where they're functioning. And we're talking, when I say they're functioning, the first graduating class went through basic elementary school literacy program. Most of these widows marry very young, and they marry older men. They don't go to school. They don't have an education. So they can't read and write and do math. Literally. And that's what QFF found in the widows. Originally, QFF came to help empower the widows to create businesses for themselves so they can lift themselves out of poverty. Since they're stuck in poverty, Hillary's vision was to empower the widows in how to go about running a small business so that they can provide for themselves and their orphan children. Well, when she started the program, she found out very quickly that the students could not even read, write, or do math. So it fell to her, let's just scrap the whole thing for now, start all over again, and teach these widows basic literary skills and math skills. Learn how to balance a checkbook. learn how to spend money, learn how to count money. That's the level here, that they didn't even know how to count money. Some of them ran little vegetable and fruit stands on the side of a road. And when someone would come to purchase their produce and they hand them the money, they wouldn't even know how to transact. They wouldn't know how to conduct a transaction because they couldn't count. And oftentimes these widows, these women, would be taken advantage of. So it was a labor of love to teach these free of charge to the widows. Nothing, everything was coming out of the coffers of QFF. And I will tell you now, most of that money came from our own resources. Hillary and I have sopped everything. We have crammed everything into this ministry from our own savings, from our own resources, from our own retirement. We have decided that this is Yah's work. What Yah has blessed us with, we're blessing. We're totally wanting to bless those who are less fortunate than us. So that's what she did. She provided these widows the opportunity to learn. Now, these widows can read, write, do basic math, and really are at a stage where they can now be taught business skills. And this is where they're going to in their second half. But I'll get into that. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But anyway, so that being said, one of the biggest things that was happening in this first half of our time here was we were going to have a graduation ceremony for those 41 widows who successfully passed the basic literacy course. And we were going to use the calabash for that ceremony. And it happened on the 22nd. It was an amazing ceremony. It was, we're going to put all of these photos and videos up on the QumranFamilyFoundation.org website in the next 2 to 3 months once we go ahead and edit them and put them in some semblance of order, because our cameras are packed full of pictures and photos and videos, and it's just a matter now of when we get back, editing those, piecing them together, and selecting the proper ones to post. But as we were getting closer to the graduation ceremony on the 22nd of September, which was this past Monday, we met with the widows in Kehancha, that class, both sides of the class, those who did not quite finish the course but are going to continue to try to get at a level in which they can graduate, as well as the graduating class. We met with both of them on separate days. And that was a tremendous experience. They received us warmly. They praised Hillary for her organization and what she is providing for them. And they just love her. They love her to death. And as I said, I documented all of this on the camera-wise, video-wise. So I'm looking forward to sharing these with you once we get back and post these. And then on the 22nd, this past Monday, we had the big ceremony that the Calabash hosted for us. It's not that we paid for it, but they provided the venue, they provided the meals that we would pay for, and we also got buses to bus them in from Kehancha, the widows in. Everything was catered and provided for them. We even got them gowns, graduation gowns, and it was a wonderful occasion. And to see the widows and their loved ones who came to witness them receiving their graduation certificates, it was almost a tearjerker. It was just an emotional, it was a, how can I say it, inspiring day. We had an MC who spoke fluent Swahili, and we hired him to provide translation and to help keep the program moving along. So we had 41 graduates. They all got their certificates, and we had a celebratory meal afterward. And these widows are now heading on to the next phase of their training and schooling, where they'll be taught basic business management skills and help them get their businesses up and running. We're going to provide them with Chromebooks so that they can run their businesses online. We're going to provide them at their school internet services through Skylink Kenya, and that will help them because all these places don't have internet access. They can do cell phone stuff, but you can't really do Excel spreadsheets. You can't read many documents. You can't really participate in online teaching that the teachers and Hillary are going to provide them unless you have some kind of computer, such as a Chromebook, that can access those online teaching opportunities. So that's coming up. Then just this past week, we took a 2.5-hour drive over to Kisii. Kisii School for the Widows hasn't actually begun yet. However, one of the teachers that we have teaching the widows in Kehancha, her parents have a tremendous amount of land. Well, earlier this year, the father of one of our teachers graciously offered land to be used by QFF. All we needed to do was pay for the building to be erected. We didn't have to pay for the land. We didn't have to pay for a lot of things that would be associated with it, but he gave us space on his land to put up a school building. And the organization QFF agreed, and over time the building was built, all bought and paid for, and when we got to Kisii, we saw the building, we were almost brought to tears. Let me be honest with you, in Kenyan standards, it's an excellent venue. In America, it might not be. There's only thing they have is windows. But it's a corrugated steel roofing with skylights and siding and a cement base. And there's 2 restrooms off on the side as well for the widows to use during classes. But that's it. It's very simple, cut and dry. Most of it is made of wood framing, but it's a sturdy frame. It's a sturdy building, and it's large enough to house 100 widows in classes, 2 separate classrooms. And when we got there, the Calabash graciously lent us the services of 2 of their staff. One was a carpenter and one was a driver. And they went about and created 2 blackboards that they erected and placed and put in place, which it was amazing. That day was great, but Hillary met with the first class, the potentially first class of widows who would be attending the school. And it was a beautiful, same like it was in Kehancha. They love her. They greeted her with such warm embrace, acclamation, songs, and all kinds of things. It's just an amazing thing to see. So we were very happy to have met them. There still have to be some vetting done in order to make sure that the widows that attend are actually widows, because there are a lot of women who come and they are not truly widows and they're not disadvantaged, and the organization is trying to be very frugal and very responsible with the funds that we have. So we have stringent rules on who qualifies to be in the classes, and the teachers are instructed very firmly and thoroughly on what the curriculum is, of course, and who is qualified to be in class. It's a 5-day-a-week course that they're going to be taking, and it runs anywhere from 4 months to 6 months, depending on the acumen of the students and how the class goes. Obviously, on holidays, on our feast days, we don't allow the teachers to work because you don't have your staff members working on the Sabbaths and on the holy days. On their holidays, we also give them the days off. Sometimes it rains and there are floodings and different issues that come up. So classes are supposed to be 5 days a week, but sometimes they may be 4 or 3 times a week, depending on the situation and all of that stuff. So I don't need to belabor that with you because I think you get it. But we did meet the widows. We had a wonderful time. We brought some food and drink for them while they interacted and fellowship with Hillary. And it was a wonderful day. It was a long day, and it was arduous. The terrain there is treacherous. When I say terrain, the school is built on a very hilly piece of land. It's a large piece of property, but it's all up in the hills. Where the school is I wouldn't call it mountains, but it's very hilly. So for us, for me, I'm 65 years old, not in the best of shape, but going up and down those hills was challenging for me, and it was challenging for Hillary. But you should see these widows. Many, I'd say the age range is between 50 through 70. And they go up and down these hills, bringing chairs and bringing refreshments and we took Bibles with us, we took some equipment with us, and they came and grabbed this stuff from us and helped us move these things up and down these various hilly terrain parcels of land. And I'm just amazed. I'm like, well, they've been doing it all their lives, so that's how they handled it. So that has been a very condensed snapshot of what we've been up to for the last month. A lot of work went into the graduation ceremony, just the administrative arm, contracting with vendors and various things took a lot of time, researching, traveling to and fro, going to the cell phone store because you can't really use your cell phone here from America here in Kenya unless you're going to pay an arm and a leg for international calling and cellular roaming, which we wanted to avoid as much as possible. And also, in order to make payments, there is a system called M-Pesa here. So you have 2 means of payment here. They don't like credit cards, though some of the establishments, like here in the Calabash, do take MasterCard, Visa. But the vast majority of vendors and service providers and so forth, they don't take credit cards. So you have to pay them either in cash or in something they call M-Pesa, the letter M, and Pesa, P-E-S-A, M-Pesa. And M-Pesa, I call it the mark of the beast, and I know I shouldn't kid about that because it's a very serious thing, but it's a thing where very few people transact with cash here in Kenya. The vast overriding majority of transactions are handled through the M-Pesa system. And that is daunting if you don't have a Kenyan phone with an M-Pesa app and an M-Pesa account. So we found very quickly once we got here in Migori that Hillary and the organization couldn't transact because we can't open up a bank account here until we get further along in the registration process where we have to be here a certain amount of time and we have to get certain other documents from the government that make us legitimate, not residents here in the country, but they know us here in the country so that these banks will permit us to open up a bank account. So to fix this and to provide a solution, Hillary decided to purchase an inexpensive cell phone here and that she could set up an M-Pesa account. We charge that M-Pesa account, and that's how we've been paying for the vast majority of expenses that QFF has incurred. And that has proven to be a godsend. us being able to do that and seeing very early on in our time here in Magori that that's what we had to do. So we were blessed that Hillary had the foresight. Let's just not worry about the bank and push the bank account. Let's just go ahead and get an M-Pesa account. Let's just go ahead and get an M-Pesa account, and so we can take care of these expenses that we were incurring in our ministry here. Now, that we have crossed the line for half the time we're here. Now we have another 3.5 weeks left, and we have still a lot more work to do here. We've been approached by 2 churches, one in Homa Bay and one in Kisii, who want to affiliate with our ministry so that possibly they can learn from us, learn the Messianic way. They're Hebrew rootish. Many of them come from a Seventh-day Adventist background. Some of them have come from a Church of God International background, but they're really not educated, or they don't understand a lot of the true Nazarene Israelite Messianic way of life. They don't understand that. They haven't been taught that, and for various reasons. So we've been approached by 2 ministries. We're seeing how we can meet with these organizations, or these 2 groups, these 2 pastors who have reached out to us. We'll see how that goes. We're going to try our best to get to see them, but we're not really sure how that's going to work up, so we're leaving it to Father to work that out for us as we wait for word on how to go about that. I think we're going to bring them in to meet us here at the Calabash in Magori, and hopefully hold a day seminar or discussion where we can lay out what we do in our ministry, what teachings we can provide them, as well as how we can partner with them in getting their widows and orphans, their needs addressed. So we're looking forward to that. Those are 2 big things. The other thing is we need to install the internet in the Kehancha school for the widows who are going into their 2nd phase of their training, because they have to receive the training online that Hillary's group is going to provide them. So we have to have Skylink, or is it Starlink? Skylink. I think it's Skylink installed. And so we're going to have to see how we're going to get that done. So that still has to be done. And we also have to arrange work at the Kisii school, the one we met the 50 widows just the other day. Well, a lot of work still needs to be done on the building and the landscaping, because as I said, the hill sides and just accessing the property is extremely treacherous and chaotic and prone to people possibly tripping and hurting themselves, and we don't want that. Also, we need to have some fencing put in and things of that nature, and finish off some of the cosmetic work that needs to be done to the building and facility, as well as we've got to vet the new students coming in. So that's what's hanging over the next 3.5 weeks for us to accomplish before we board our puddle jumper back to Nairobi on the 17th and hightail it out of here in Nairobi International on the 19th. And these are exciting times. As a whole, and in closing and bringing this to somewhat of a closure here, as I said, I don't want to waste is not a good word, but I don't want to spend too much of your time. And plus, I'm not really sure how the internet is going to handle me uploading these videos and this audio, but we're going to give it a try. I think we've got a good enough internet signal that we'll be able to hopefully get this uploaded, at least over in the next day or 2. But as a synopsis, we've accomplished quite a bit here, only through Yah's grace, only through his strength, only through his mercy, providence, resources, inspiration, protection, all of that came from Yehovah our Elohim. He is the one who is at the forefront of this. Praise, honor only goes to him. We're just his vessel, and we're here following his instructions, his leading, his guidance. And I think we're on the right road. In fact, I don't just think, I know, because everything has fallen into place. We have not needed for anything. Everything that we've needed to accomplish the mission has been provided. And we've not wanted for anything. And so we've taken care of the widows in Kehancha, and we've graduated the first class. We've met the widows in Kisii, and we're looking at starting their class either late next month or in early November. The building is pretty much done and ready to bring in the students and get this thing going. We're looking at, hopefully in the future, the same person who offered us the land to use for the school in Kisii is offering us the opportunity to build an orphanage there also on the property. So that hit us very hard, because it's like we had never even thought about that. So we're going to pray about that, and we're going to be coming to you off and on asking for your support and your prayer, and any resources you may be able to provide. The other thing was, I just had it in mind, but it kind of slipped my mind here just, okay, it'll come back to me later in another time, but that's pretty much it. We've had a wonderful, wonderful, blessed time. We're bone tired, but it's a good tired, because we are doing Yah's will. And when you're tired doing Yah's will, it's a good feeling. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and to, I'm going to be posting a video of myself giving you this update on our YouTube channel, the Messianic Torah Observer YouTube channel, as well as I'll also be posting the audio. So looking forward to getting back to you guys in late October. And please hold us up in your prayers. Please pray for us that we will be able to accomplish all that Father has set before us to do. And also, if I can ask you to support this effort, this ministry, this mission, financially as well. Simply go on over to QumranFamilyFoundation.org. Again, that's QumranFamilyFoundation.org, and make your donation. I will tell you that it is a tax-exempt organization, and it all your financial donations to Qumran Family Foundation are tax deductible. Not that that's the driving force for you to bless us. Believe me, I hate asking for money, but it's something that we have to do, because we can't do this alone. We need your help. And if you're led to do so, pray about it before you do it. And if you are led to do so, please, please help us. And with that, I will bring this update of the Messianic Torah Observer to a close. And if I can, and Yah provides the opportunity to do so, I will go ahead and give you another update before we leave, Abba willing. Not making any promises, we'll see how it goes. And I am so grateful that you took the time out of your busy schedule to fellowship with me here on this set-apart, blessed day of rest in Yeshua Messiah. Until next time, Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov. Have a wonderful upcoming Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, and also Sukkot, the 8-day Feast of Tabernacles. Take care, beloved. Shalom, shalom.